Alright guys, TacticalRab again today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. It seems OpTic Texas are pulling out all the stops to try and make their comeback for the World Championship with Accuracy, former in-game leader for the Minnesota Rocker, for the Seattle Surge, and even for Team Caliber back in the day, which will become relevant in this video. It seems spotted with the OpTic guys in a Discord call last night, going over what seemed to be a class is in session moment, with Accuracy potentially getting involved with the OpTic camp to try and turn their team round. Can this be successful? What exactly would he be working on? Could Accuracy become a long-term coach for OpTic if what we saw last night is actually indicative of what they are considering here going into champs? Very much interested your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I would greatly appreciate it. Plenty to get into. Firstly, what do you guys think about this? I don't know if you've seen this before, but here's a Tatch with a secret crew spot. Pretty funny how he wants his slice of the pie, right? Whether he's at champs or not, and he's not this year because Vegas didn't qualify, he still wants to have something that he, at least is talking about to getting involved at champs, because I imagine this may well be used. Here we are, of course, on Invasion, and some people have discovered this before, but it is worth knowing, as a Tatch says. You call in a cruise, they're trying to capture the B point. They're probably going to run into Broken Building, but if you just aim the cruise right about here on the roof, it will just kill the guy in Broken anyway. So it was like, alright, sound. Great game, by the way, but I don't think that this is not going to be used at champs. Maybe they GA this, but then the pro would say, oh, well, I just kind of accidentally, I didn't mean to land it there or whatever. Unlikely that they would do that. Probably this is going to start getting abused. So definitely stay tuned for that one when the World Championship gets underway. But let's talk about this OpTic Texas team, because their big problem is search and destroy on the surface level. That's where they've been getting slammed. Loads of Game 5 losses over the last few weeks. Had they just gone 50-50 in search, or even 30% in search, they would have been in a far better position than they are in now. Problem is though, they lost 12 search and destroys in a row. They're not far off. They're literally one away from tying Boston's record that they set earlier on this season. So on the surface, that's the problem, the search and destroy. But of course, under the surface, as a result of the search play, and even in the respawns, it's not like they've been quite as good. We've seen a few moments over the last couple of weeks where OpTic losing respawn maps, you would typically expect them to be winning. So with that in mind, are they still seeing eye to eye in the way that they previously did? Because, some things go wrong in the game, and then all of a sudden things maybe start to go wrong outside of the game as well. So sure, the search and destroy is the biggest problem. Octane basically says, look, doesn't matter what they practice and work on over the next couple of weeks. What matters is when they load into game 2 against Los Angeles Guerrillas, that's when you'll really see whether all their practice and everything from a mental perspective can actually be executed on. So they can try as hard as they like, but there's always going to be questions until they actually turn up to the World Championship. But I think what they really need is to actually trust each other, believe each other, and get back on the same page. Because while the search is the problem on the surface, I think there's a little bit more to it than that, what's going on behind the scenes right now. There was some, interesting comments made by Dashy on the thing that he did, the conversation he had with Scump effectively. They were asking the question, 1 versus 1 for the ring, Game 5 round or Game 9 round 11 or Game 7 round 11, whatever it's going to be at champs. Who's going to win that 1v1 for the dub? On the team, on the OpTic team, Scump says Shotzzy. Dashy actually gives the credit here to Kenny and says that, he's icy, he'll get the job done in that moment. So, I don't really think that Dashy and Kenny and maybe not seeing eye to eye. My concern, as I mentioned yesterday, would be about kind of Pred and Kenny, right? Whether that duo is really, clicking, is it really working? Are the guys on the same page about various things? Because OpTic went from being a contender, from being the #1 seed in the league, to all of a sudden bowing out nearly 4th. I mean, they ended up on 415 points, despite being very much, tied or very close to Ultra and FaZe, certainly after their victory back at Major 3, and their series record went from being pretty similar to Ultra, pretty similar to FaZe, to all of a sudden actually worse than the Subliners on the course of the season. So big fall off, as we know, at the end of the season for the OpTic Texas boys. But the question being, can they bounce back from here? Now the Hex Quarters is back. Here's Dashy. He absolutely loves it there, as we know. Don't know what that's going to mean with his location, because obviously the boys were playing out of the downtown Dallas facility that was the former Envy offices. Now it's OpTic, but not for too much longer, because they just don't need all that space anymore. Move into the Hex Quarters. They're setting things up. They're moving in, and I'm sure that OpTic are going to be back here, at least the team, in the near future. But what was spotted last night in a fascinating development was this. So just to explain what's going on here exactly, this is clearly one of the OpTic Discords, maybe the OpTic Discord, I'm not exactly sure. But there's a feature on Discord, or there's an extension, that if you download it, it allows you to see who is in private channels. Now, you can't join the channels, but if somebody's in a private channel which the members are hidden from view, there's like an extension you can get which basically reveals exactly who's in there. So this is what we saw yesterday with the OpTic team chat for a scrim, it seems, because obviously OpTic are doing lots of practice right now. Champs is just around the corner. They need to turn up. There are rumours that, you know, they were scrimming FaZe, I think, a couple of days ago. Hopefully that went well if they want to turn around their season the way that it's gone the last couple of times. But look, we've got Dashy, we've got Kenny, we've got Pred, we've got Shotzzy. The team of 4 is there. Big fan, I'm guessing, is Karma. But, you know, this seems like a Karma thing to do. JP obviously is JP, and you can clearly see that in the Discord, you know, they've all got the OpTic roles or whatever. Whereas Accuracy, which I believe is Accuracy, obviously, I don't imagine it would be anyone else, is in here as well. So this was spotted yesterday and immediately caused a lot of discussion on the Accuracy to OpTic potential storyline. Does this mean that Accuracy is coming in to coach OpTic for the World Championship? That is probably the most likely read on what is going on here. Is he going to come in as like a short-term consultant for the team? Because he's not at Champs, right, Accuracy? And they've got a couple of weeks for him to potentially, you know, come involved and help somebody get on board. Obviously, he lives in Dallas, so close to the guys there, because Minnesota Rocket, they're based there. Certainly, Accuracy's based there for the majority of the season. So, makes sense maybe for him to get involved as well, either in person or potentially online, going into their scrim practice and stuff like this. Because if you look at some of the top teams, they have, you know, at least 2, if not 3 members of the coaching staff quite often, right? They'll often have a couple of coaches that have maybe a stats guy, maybe like a performance, like a mentality guy, and some of these other factors at play. OpTic have not had, I would say, the strongest coaching team over the last few years. JP is an analyst effectively. I know that he's kind of a coach on some level, but, you know, more he looks at the numbers. Karma came in as the coach, but not a player with massive amounts of experience coaching. Very intelligent player, Karma. Absolutely, one cannot downplay the level of understanding Karma has about COD and the importance that he can be to a team like this. But there were always questions for me with Karma as to whether, from like a man management perspective, he was going to be the right guy. Like, he's going to tell you what you're doing wrong, and a lot of the OpTic guys have praised him, the fact that, like, he'll come into scrims and he'll say, look, guys, what was that about? Like, let's fix that going forwards. But if there's, like, internal team chemistry issues, I don't know if Karma's the right man to fix that. I don't think JP's the right man to fix that necessarily. Karma's the man that's going to get you playing top tier COD. Like, if you listen to what Karma says and you execute on Karma's, you know, strategy and game plan of what he wants you to do in certain moments, you're probably going to win. But from like a man management angle, I'm not sure Karma's necessarily the guy to go to, especially if you're having issues with certain players who have experience, shall we say, with a certain in-game leader in their time. And this, of course, is where Accuracy comes into play. This is JP, if you guys aren't aware, the effectively analyst, but then when Rambo left, he kind of became like the coach and analyst. Then Karma's in to kind of take over that role. And of course, this was, I think, Karma's first event coaching the team, which I think was last year at Toronto, which they, yeah, it didn't end especially well, that tournament for those guys. Now, to be fair to Accuracy, he's also played this entire season. So in terms of understanding the game, the fundamental side of the game, I'm sure that Accuracy has a few good things to add as well. But I would say that the main reason you would get Accuracy in, either as a short-term coaching thing, as like a consultant from now to Champs, or, which is also possible, as a longer term thing, right? Is it possible to have, you know, Accuracy and Karma be coaching OpTic next year? Because we know that Minnesota Rocket, Accuracy ain't going to the Esports World Cup. Like, we're pretty sure he's basically been dropped from the team. They're keeping Gunless, they're keeping Lins, they might get Beans in, they're probably going to get somebody else. Okay, they need to, right? Because it's 4 versus 4. So Accuracy doesn't really have, as it stands, an option for next season. So, and I've expected for years Accuracy to step into coaching. Like, I think when his career is done, and he may still get a chance to play again. To be honest, I thought after last year, Accuracy might step away, become a coach of a certain team, but he got another chance to play. He did so, and he was pretty good at the start of the season. Then he fell off. You know, his Lion Man cards haven't been great. This is just his career, by the way, that I'm just scrolling through here, but you'll notice a couple of, shall we say, familiar names further down this list in terms of the players that he might potentially be working with again in some form or another. And as I say, no, his player cards weren't great. After Major 1, he fell off a fair bit, and it wasn't dissimilar to last season in some respects. There's a good argument here that is it about time that Accuracy calls it a day as a player, and I'm just not sure where his next playing opportunity would even come from, but I think everybody knows very intelligent player, very good on a man-to-man basis at getting the best out of his teammates, and in many respects has actually been kind of the godfather to a couple of very notable players over the last few years. And I think that Accuracy has been considered that if he does coach, he will be a great coach. I'm firmly convinced that that is true. So all of a sudden he's spotted coaching OpTic, and the big story I would say for this one is really about the whole Kenny and Pred thing, because here's Accuracy, this is Theory on the left, now a head coach actually of the Vegas Legion, this is Chino on the right, but yeah, so Accuracy and Kenny, they won back-to-back championships back in World War II, right, when they were on Team Caliber together, and this was Kenny's first year properly in the league. He teamed with Accuracy. Kenny was an absolute superstar straight into the league that season, and I'm sure that Accuracy had a part to play in that. A couple of years later, here he is with Pred on the right-hand side, and it's quite well known that Accuracy was a pretty important part of Pred's development as well. So all of a sudden, we're having rumours about, are there issues between Pred and Kenny? Are they seeing eye to eye or whatever? And now Accuracy spotted in the call. So yes, maybe Accuracy can bring some things in terms of how to play the game, fundamentals, whatever. I think Accuracy, if he is going to be there, is there to really figure out, okay, how do we get the boys on the same page? How do we ensure that they trust each other, the confidence is still there? And I think Accuracy might be arguably the perfect guy to try and get them to that point. But it also shows that OpTic are, they've got some humility, OpTic. If this is true, that Accuracy is actually going to come in as effectively coach them for a couple of weeks, and if it goes well, then maybe he might stay long term in addition to the other staff, because as I say, FaZe, they have 3-4 guys they've had. Same with Toronto, same with New York, really. So, maybe OpTic in a similar boat could make a fair bit of sense. And I think it's good to see from OpTic, because OpTic could easily have said, well, we'll be fine. We'll figure it out. We'll just scrim harder. We'll just put in more work. And it's going to be fine. But I think you often see, in the same way that with Los Angeles Thieves a couple of years ago, when they were struggling big time, and during Vanguard they decided, okay, let's do the role change. Let's bring in Shane as well as an additional coach to Jake happens. Those were the differences. You'll see that certain teams over time, they can be very good, then they can fall off, and then you wonder how they need to get back to where they need to be, or whatever. Often, just grinding doesn't necessarily solve it. It tends to be that you need some sort of change. Even if it's minor, a role swap has been the case before. Don't think that really works with OpTic. The other thing can be a change of coaching staff, a new voice in the room, just something a little bit different, because I think it's possible to get mentally trapped in the model of before. It's the same environment, same setup, and for the last few weeks you've been getting slammed. So just a bit of a change can snap the players out of that a little bit and potentially take them in the right direction. So I think it's actually really cool that OpTic are doing this. If they are, then Accuracy to come in and at least try, because probably an intelligent decision, especially given that Lamar isn't playing at the World Championship. But is this going to work? Very much interested in your perspective on all this stuff in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care. And I'll see you next time.
I'm going to hit you with a tough one. No favoritism here. If you had to pick one person from your team right now, 1v1 round 11 for the ring, who are you taking and why?
Excluding myself or including myself?
Exclude yourself. Just to make it interesting.
Damn.
This is crazy because they're...
Because I could honestly trust any of them. And when I'm watching their pubs, I have 100% belief
nope,
that they're
that's 2PR. Who are you picking?
I know.
He's trying to get out of the question.
Honestly,
you see he's media trained. He tried to sidestep it.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm picking any of them.
Oh my God.
I'll tell you who I'm going with.
I'm low-key Okay, wait. You want to say yours first?
I'm going with Ant. I got to go with Ant. Ant's icy, bro. And Ant, when you watch his late night 8s, he has so many cross spots on so many maps that he just goes to without even thinking.
Yeah, he'll hold he won't fall for the moment almost. He'll just play the 1v1 how it's supposed to be played.
Or he'll plant the bomb, throw a smoke at his feet, play Warzone a little bit. I'm going Ant, personally.
I'd probably go with Ken, honestly.
Ken? Ken's icy.
Because for some reason, him is just, I'm just thinking about the way he'd play with an AR, just aggressive. Maybe it's just because he's an AR player, so I could kind of see his POV a little bit in mind. Just maybe chowing, not necessarily caring if it's you know what I'm saying? Sometimes you could watch a teammate in a 1v1, you're like, bro, you're kind of tweaking right now. Game, bro. Even though it's 5-5, but he gives me vibes that
you wouldn't tweak.
You just square.
Sure.
Whatever happens, happens.